What with Sulky. I am Ellen March, and we are going to have a great time here live streaming because I am going to be going over our latest free project, which is our Halloween Gnome cross-stitch chart. And I'm going to give you some tips for cross-stitch, some hacks for cross-stitch. We'll also be talking about hand embroidery, and I'm going to bring in a little machine embroidery into the mix today as well. So lots to talk about. Be sure to chime in on the live chat or in the comments section. Let me know where you're from, say hello, post your questions and comments, because if you do so, you will be automatically eligible to win today's little gift from Sulky, and I will go over that in just a moment. All right, so before we get started, as usual, I want to let you know we have some great sale deals, or coupon codes rather. So jot down these coupon codes to be sure to use them if you make a purchase today after seeing the So What, or if you need to stock up on your Sulky sewing supplies because it's the Dog Days of Summer sale. So you will be using the coupon code BARK15 for 15% off any order up to $49.99. And then WOOF25 for 25% off of your order up to $99.99. And then Howl35 for 35% off any order that's $100 and above. So the more you spend, the more you save. And all you need to do is jot down these coupon codes. They are also right on the website at sulky.com. So if you don't get a chance to jot them down, when you head on over to the website, you will see this image and you can be sure to jot down the coupon code that applies to your order size. All right, so let's kind of get into it. Actually, before we start, I'm so excited because as many of you know, we are doing a Sulky craft tour through Europe, and we will be leaving in about 4 or 5 weeks now. We've been talking about this for about a year because our trip was totally delayed and basically canceled due to COVID a couple of years ago. And we are finally able to go back and do the tour that we had set up so long ago. However, it just happens to now coincide with the 35th anniversary of Sulky. So we will be doing a lot of special things to celebrate that occasion. We have some really fun dinners planned where we will get together. I just finished compiling loads of kits for everyone because I will be doing some hands-on workshops during the tour. And I have a special gift for everyone when they arrive to commemorate this occasion with Sulky. So it's going to be a really great time. But yesterday, I got my itinerary and all kinds of goodies in the mail from Craft Tours. And I just wanted to kind of show you how they set you up for a successful traveling experience. They are with you the entire way. We have a Craft Tours escort on the tour, as well as myself. And if you were not able to get in on our tour because it actually sold out, and I know there were a few people on the waiting list. So if you were not able to get in on our 2022 tour, we will be coming back in 2023 with another offering. So stay tuned for that. And I, of course, will let you know here on So What, as well as in our monthly newsletter. Now, if you're not getting the Sulky monthly newsletter, go on our website and scroll all the way down and you'll see a box to sign up for our newsletter. That's where you're going to get information on all of our sales, all of our deals, all of our education. Actually, you get a email from me monthly where I tell you about all the happenings at Sulky and things that I think that you will want to know, such as when our latest craft tour is available for registration. So here's what they sent me in the mail. First off, you get this lanyard that you will wear around your neck when you arrive so that when the craft tour escort finds you at the airport, she knows who to look for. So it's a really great way to identify all of us. Plus, when we get off of the plane and we're kind of collecting our baggage and things, we can look around and see, oh, they're on the tour as well, so are they, and we can kind of get together and meet each other and make our way out. So if there's anyone who is reluctant about traveling overseas, or they've never been to this airport before, that type of thing, it's really helpful, and it allows us all to come together. So you get this cool lanyard. It has a zipper in here so you can store some things. Little pocket on the front with your full itinerary. So this has our everyday mapped out. So when you wake up in the morning, you can say, what are we doing today? Or you can look ahead, and it tells you if your breakfast, lunch, or dinner is included that day, if there's free time. And then there's a little space for notes. So if you want to take this with you on the bus, you can kind of jot down notes of where you ate or what you saw or what you did. And then you can refer to this later on if you are ever back in these parts, or if you're putting together a scrapbook or something of your trip, you kind of have notes for what you did every day and where you were, because everything happens so fast and we do so much every day. So it's a cool reminder of, what you actually did, and you can go through all your photos and remember, oh, that's the place I ate, that kind of thing. So really cute little reference. Then you also get lots of paperwork to prepare you for the trip. You get your full flight information. It's printed out a couple of times so you can share it with your loved ones when you're gone. You also get a little kind of know before you go packet of information, suggestions on what to pack. I mean, it is so comprehensive and so nice. And this is what you pay for when you go on a tour like this. Somebody is taking care of all of these details for you. You don't have to be the one to make all of these arrangements and lists, and it's a lot. All right, so you get that. They also give you this great bag, which you can bring with you as your daily travel or shopping bag. It folds up really nicely. It has spaces for a water bottle, front pocket, really nice bag. And then you also get this cool thing. This I think is fairly new, because I've been on a couple of craft tours and I didn't get this cool little container. This is a screen wipe for, your phone or your tablet. They also give you a luggage wrap to identify your luggage. So when you are going on and off the bus or grabbing up your luggage, really nice. It's nice and padded. So you get this great thing. It has a currency conversion chart in it. It has the information for craft tours if you need to get a hold of them for anything during the tour or beyond. A pen. It's a nice place to store your passport and your travel documents. It's really like a glorified wallet. Okay, there's room for cards, cash, all kinds of stuff. So really nice. I mean, they really set you up for success. So I just wanted to share that before we get started today, because it's exciting when you get this in the mail and, you've been looking forward to this. If anyone has signed up for the craft tour, let me know, give me a thumbs up. And let me know if you got your package in the mail. It's really exciting to open it. It's kind of like a mystery box. So I wanted to share that with all of you. All right, so let's get to our fun project today. As you know, and we talked about it last week, as soon as August happens, all of a sudden everything is about Halloween. And I couldn't be more excited because I absolutely love sewing for Halloween. It is so fun, and you get to work with all kinds of specialty threads and metallics and bring out the glowies and the reflective thread and all of these fun special effects we can create to create costumes and home decor and all kinds of things to celebrate this spooky holiday. So today we're going to be talking about our free Halloween Gnome cross stitch chart. This was designed by Marcia Manning of Cross Stitch Wonders, and it is so incredibly adorable. Now, if cross stitch isn't your thing, I still recommend grabbing up this free chart, because you can use it as a template for applique. You can use it as a template for hand embroidery. You can even outline the design and free motion stitch on something. So you don't have to say, oh, this is a cross stitch design and that's not really my thing. Now it very well may be your thing. And maybe you haven't done cross stitch in a while. This is your chance to come back to it. We've made it really, really easy for you with this free chart. I also want to mention that it features our Sulky Filaine thread. Now, if you join me here on So What every week, then you definitely have heard me talk about the Sulky Filaine thread. This is the thread that is textured and kind of nubby. Can you tell? And when you brush it with our Filaine wire brush, it blooms and the fibers kind of release and it has this faux fur effect. It is the coolest thing. It's a 12 weight thread, so heavy weight, okay? One strand of this, just like our Cotton Petites, one strand of Filaine equals 2 strands of embroidery floss. So yes, you can use it for hand sewing and cross stitch, just like you would use Sulky Cotton Petites. However, now you have the option with Filaine Petites. So to make things easier, for a while now, we have offered Filaine on these large spools. This is great for machine embroidery because when you're using it for machine embroidery and using it to mimic fur and beards and cat fur and things like this, you need quite a bit of thread to create those embroidery designs. So we first launched this size of spool, and now we have the Filaine Petites on a 50-yard spool. So when you're doing handwork, as you know, you don't need as much thread. There isn't underlay stitch and layering stitches and things like that to create dimension. So the 50-yard spools are great for handwork. They're also great for machine embroidery designs that only use a small bit of Filaine, and I will be going over that momentarily as well. So the cool thing is you can do cross stitch or hand embroidery with the with the 12 weight 50-yard spool of Filaine, and that's what this design is intended for. So you can grab up this free chart at sulky.com. All you have to do is add it to your cart. You kind of go through the checkout process, even though it's $0. And once you go through, it will be in your Sulky account and you can download the entire PDF chart and you will have this at your disposal. Now, here is the design with the beard and the cat brushed out using that wire brush. So only the beard and the cat are brushed, even though the whole design is done in the Filaine Petites. So you can see that cat has this fur coming off of it, right? And the beard has a little bit of bushiness to it. Now, the more you brush it out, the fuller and fluffier it's going to get. And you do want to try to brush in the same direction. You can go one way for a little while and then kind of comb it with your hand and then go the opposite way if you really want it to fluff up. Just be careful when you're doing it because that wire brush is very, very coarse and we don't want to create loops in all of the cross stitches that we created by hand. So just be really careful when you're brushing it out and you will just start seeing it come to life. And it's such a cool effect. I think you all will really love it. So we also have a 6-pack of thread that goes with this cross stitch design. It contains all the colors that are featured in the design. And this is the 50 weight Filaine Petites. I believe it's only 10 or 12 bucks on the website. So really affordable. And you'll want to grab these up so you have all the colors that you need featured in the chart. And this happens to be our giveaway today for one lucky viewer who is watching, commenting, sharing out today's live stream post. That's all you have to do. And then you are automatically eligible to win today's gift. So I will pick a winner tomorrow sometime and notify you. and you will receive this great 6-pack of Filaine Petites. So not only that, oh, here are all the colors so you can see them a little bit better out of the packaging. There's 2 colors of orange, a black, a gray, a white, and kind of a tan ecru color. We also have this really cool thing. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen these wooden blanks, okay? But they are like laser cut wooden blanks that you create your cross stitches through, and then you can just hang it up on your front door or in your kitchen or gift it away. And it's such an easy way to do cross stitch because you don't have to contend with any, 8 count fabric or stamped cross stitch, which I'm going to show you momentarily. You have this really cool wooden blank, and as soon as you're done stitching, the project is complete. This is a really great gift in and of itself if you're teaching someone how to sew or learning for the first time. This is a really, really cool add-on, and it's made specifically for this design, so it's totally a Sulky exclusive, very affordable way to create a finished project, practice those cross stitches, and, because you're stitching through this wood, all of your crosses are exactly the same, right? You don't have one that's gone off, on an errant path and, looks off from the rest of the design, because all of your little crosses will just fit in these little, squares of the wooden blank. So have any of you out there used one of these before? Because I think it is absolutely the coolest thing. And because it's so stable and you've done your stitches on this wood, when you go to brush it out, you can get really precise with only brushing out, the kitty fur, or only brushing out the gnome's beard without accidentally running into any other portions of the design. Now, also to circumvent that, you could stitch the beard first and then brush it out, then stitch the cat and brush it out, and then stitch the rest of your design. So if you're worried about your Filaine brush hitting the pumpkin or something because you're vigorously brushing out that beard, then start with those portions, brush them out until you get the desired fluffiness, and then move forward with stitching the rest of the design. So the wooden blank is about 5 inches square, give or take a little here and there. And, the size of your design is going to depend on the size of Aida fabric you're using. If you are doing counted cross stitch and you need to count the fabric fibers to create your design, that's great. So your design size is going to be determined by your fabric count, by how big or small the squares are in your fabric, or the weave, rather. So if you're using the blank, however, it's about 5 inches square, like I said, give or take a little here and there. Now, if you want to do stamped cross stitch, now I will tell you what that is, but here is that wooden blank a little bit closer up so you can see how it is specifically made for this design. I mean, it's the coolest thing. I think you should all grab one, put it in your cart. We have a limited supply of them because they are a special order. So grab one, get your Filaine Petites, get your free project, free cross stitch chart, and you will have so much fun with this. All right, so here we go. I wanted to show you also, you don't have to brush out the Filaine thread, and you still get a textured, kind of cool, vintagey look by using that thread. So the lower right corner with our gnome is not brushed out. And then you can see the difference of the gnome that is stitched on Aida fabric with that fluffy, fuzzy, furry thread. So that's just kind of the difference. You don't necessarily have to brush it out, but you get a really cool effect when you do. So be sure to grab that Filaine brush and add it to your cart as well with those other items. Okay, look, my eyesight's going. I have to get really close. I have to get really close to the screen to see it these days. Okay, so stamped cross stitch. How many of you have tried stamped cross stitch or even know what that is? So stamped cross stitch is kind of, I'm going to call it a cheater cross stitch, okay? Because we don't have to count anything. So if you are new to cross stitch, or you don't have an Aida fabric that you want to use, or you don't want to go out and purchase one, or you want to create a pillow on a nice linen fabric, or on a blank, and you don't have, you don't have the luxury of counting your fabric fibers to create your cross stitches, you can do stamped cross stitch. Now what that means is we're going to use Sulky Stick and Stitch, which is our printable, adhesive-backed, wash-away stabilizer sheets. You run these through your computer, or through your printer rather, and print out just the chart portion of your design. So I have that right here. This is it printed out. Now, normally I would say print this on your draft setting or your lowest ink setting. Now, I didn't do that with mine because I wanted you to be able to see it really clearly on camera here. So I do have a tiny little bit of, you can see like a little bit of ink buildup from my printer because I printed it at like full ink. Now, you don't need to do that because it's just going to saturate the product. And you really just need to be able to just see the design. You can also print this in color, which is really great for design like this where 6 colors are involved, because it gives you that visual clue that you need to swap your thread colors, because sometimes we get in that meditative state, especially when we're doing handwork, and we just keep going with our cross stitches, forgetting to swap out the colors. And then we have to kind of pick out the threads and start again, and it's happened to me more times than I can even say. So printing this in color is also great. And be sure to go on that draft setting or lowest ink setting before you print it out so that you're not using up all of your ink on one design. So what else did I want to mention about this? Oh, you also want to be sure to print on the fabric-like side. So you can see it kind of feels like fabric. It looks like a little bit of compressed fibers. It also has some kind of like dots in it, much like interfacing has the little dots in it. And that actually really helps you to measure your stitches. And you can use that as kind of a guide for how long or short to create your stitches while you're doing your handwork. So if you're using this as a stamped cross stitch, you will just follow this, creating your X's in each of the little squares. If you're using it for hand embroidery, print the same exact template, and then you can choose the stitches that you want to create in each area. So if you want to do long and short stitches along the beard so that you can brush it out, you'll want to make your stitches pretty close together. And I suggest long and short stitches so that they're kind of staggered across the beard. So when you go to brush it out, it really just looks like a bunch of fluff. Maybe you want to do only outline stitches for the pumpkin and not fill it full of stitches. You can choose to do that around your pumpkin. Maybe for the cat, you're doing satin stitches and French knots for the eyes. So you can really take liberties with this. All right, so I am going to show you exactly how I would do this design as a stamped cross stitch. So I found in my stash this fat quarter of sparkly metallic Essex linen. It's by Robert Kaufman, and it's one of my favorite substrates. So this, I don't know if you could see this, the subtle sparkliness in it, but I thought it would make a really cute Halloween pillow. So I simply used a German wooden embroidery hoop. We have these at sulky.com. They're extremely high quality. They're so much better than those brittle embroidery hoops you find at craft stores and things like that. They don't lose their shape. And for a couple extra dollars, you're going to get something that lasts you so much longer. So I've hooped my linen and I really just centered my hoop on the fat quarter. And then after I'm done, I can kind of decide how big I want the finished pillow to be, if I want to add border fabrics to it, etc. But for right now, I'm just centering it on the fat quarter to have as much room as possible to play with once the design is complete. I also have a little needle minder on here. How many of you have ever used a needle minder? They are the cutest things. We have a bunch of them to choose from at sulky.com. This is a little birdie on a tree stump. We have bicycles and we have little flower pots and so many cute designs. These needle minders are by Flamingo Toes and we carry them at sulky.com. So the back of it has this tiny little magnet that holds it in place. So when you are stitching, especially a large scale design like this, that's going to take a little time, you can leave your thread where it lies and just put your needle on this little magnet. And when you go to grab up your project again, you don't have to look for your needle. You don't have to put it in the fabric, you know, to kind of hold it there and create a hole and all that stuff. So such a cute idea to have your little needle minder. All right, so I have my hooped fabric. Let me kind of adjust some things here. And I've got my pattern on the stick and stitch sheet. All right, so I'm just going to cut it out, leaving myself a little bit of a border beyond the design. You don't want to go right up to the design edge. You want to give yourself a little bit of sticker to grab onto the fabric. I should mention too that you need to make sure that the fabric that you're using can withstand the water removal method that we are going to do when the design is complete. So you need to make sure that your fabric, you know, that you can drench it in water basically. All right, so now I have my sticker and I'm going to peel away my paper release sheet. Just find a little corner to get it started. And now I have my sticker and I can center it or place it wherever I want on my hooped fabric. The great thing about this too, this product, is if you're working with a more stable fabric that's not, let's say, this linen that I'm using that has a rather open weave to it, you may not even need the hoop because this is also a stabilizer. So it's going to make your fabric nice and flat and taut once you apply your sticker to it. So if I'm working on, if I'm using Sulky Felty, for example, I may not even need a hoop for that. Now, some people like just holding onto a hoop and then your, fabric doesn't shift over time and stuff like that. So if you're just used to using a hoop, by all means, use it all the time. And as long as your fabric can be hooped, right? You're not doing it on a collar or something like that. So I'm just going to center my little guy using the grid that is so nice and just on there from the cross stitch design. I'm going to have to shift my needle minder over so that I can get my sticker in place. And you just lightly use your fingers to place your sticker. So now I have my sticker right on the fabric and I can start stitching. So the easiest transfer method you will ever do in your life is using the stick and stitch, because it's going to wash away completely once my stitching is complete. So after your very last stitch, you will make sure to tie or to weave all of your thread tails along the back side of your stitching. Or if you prefer to knot, if you're using a heavier weight fabric, you can go ahead and knot because you're not going to see those knots or feel them with a heavier weight fabric. But something light like this, I'm going to weave my thread tails in from the back side once my stitching is complete. And we'll see if I can show you a little bit of that if I get that far. But at any rate, make sure your back is nice and tidy. You can even use a piece of Sulky Tender Touch and fuse that to the back side of your handwork when it's complete. And that kind of seals all of your thread tails, makes sure that nothing snags on the back of your embroidery. And Tender Touch is so lightweight, it's not going to change the hand of your fabric. It's what we put on the back of machine embroidery, t-shirts, onesies, things like that, to make sure that the scratchy stitching doesn't irritate our skin. So you can also use Tender Touch and fuse it to the back of your completed cross stitch or hand embroidery for sort of the same purpose. And it also acts like an additional layer of interfacing. If you're using something like this, which is it's almost transparent. I can see the shadow of my hand, almost the color of my hand, through the fabric because of that open weave. So the Tender Touch, I would actually apply it to the whole front pillow piece once my embroidery was complete to act as that interfacing, seal up all the stitching on the wrong side. And it's permanent stabilizer that's fusible. So it's going to stay with the project over time. So I would add that after my stick and stitch is washed away and my fabric is dried. All right. So I thought I would start with the cat and do my stamped cross stitch. But again, if you prefer to do hand embroidery, you can choose the stitches that you want to do using this stamped method or this embroidery transfer or design transfer method. You could also do this and take it over to your machine, out of the hoop, of course, and free motion stitch over all of these little elements and do this entirely on your sewing machine. So lots of different options. If you're not into doing things by hand, you could certainly free motion stitch. You could just outline stitch this on a little tea towel. That would be adorable. I actually brought some embroidery blanks that we have at sulky.com because I couldn't really decide what I wanted to stitch my finished little Halloween gnome on. I also want to mention, if you do the stamped cross stitch, it's going to print out on an 11.5 or 8.5 by 11 sheet of stick and stitch or sheet of paper. And the design works out to be about 8 inches square, give or take a little here and there. So it will always be that size unless you resize it using your printer page setup option. You'll have the option to resize it to 150% or 50% or those types of things. So you can adjust the size that way if you want. But if you print it out as is, it's going to print perfectly on one sheet of stick and stitch, which is that 8-inch size. So the only way to get your cross stitch bigger or smaller outside of using the stamped cross stitch method is to use a larger or smaller count of Aida fabric. And that way, when you are counting across and up and down to do counted cross stitch, your little crosses are going to be determined by the available space in each square of your fabric. Everybody with me? Okay. So, speaking of using this design on some blanks, you'll pretty much have to do your counted cross stitch or your stamped cross stitch method if you decide to add the design to a blank. Because again, these, for example, this is one of the towels that we have at sulky.com, and I thought it would be perfect for this design because it has this great black border on it, which I feel like lends itself so well to a Halloween type of design. So really cute. I would probably resize the design by 50%, test it on a piece of paper before I print it out onto my stick and stitch, and see if that's kind of the right size for the front of the towel. Because, you know, normally we display our towels about like this, folded into thirds or fourths, depending on how big the towel is. So you want to kind of size it based on how you're going to fold and display your finished towel. So this is one we have at sulky.com. And then this one is really fun too. This would be great for Halloween or even a holiday design. It has these metallic accents going on in it. You could even hand embroider or do stamped cross stitch and then add that as an applique onto a towel like this, and then use some metallic threads or hollow shimmer or sliver and add those in with your 12 weight Filaine. Just add like a strip of or a strand of original metallic or hollow shimmer in with a strand of your Filaine, and then you can have a little bit of subtle sparkle that kind of goes with your towel blank, and that would be a really cool effect also. All right, so I am just going to do a couple of stitches on the cat ear here, and I'm just doing this to show you how to kind of start and stop your stitches. Now, you can do a little pin stitch to start and stop your cross stitches, and we have a full video tutorial on how to begin cross stitch designs from Amanda Mae McNaughton. She has a cross stitch company called Artith Designs, and she did an intro to cross stitch video for us. See how I'm just kind of holding the thread tail? I'm going to stop when it gets about here. So I have a little bit of thread tail that I'm just going to hold on to while I do my first few cross stitches. And then when I'm done with this strand, I'm going to thread my needle with my thread tail and weave that into the back of the design instead of placing a knot. All right. But at any rate, you could also do a little pin stitch to begin, which I will show you right now, but I learned from Amanda Mae in our Intro to Cross Stitch video series, which is at YouTube. If you go to our playlists on YouTube, you will find Intro to Cross Stitch, and there are several designs from Amanda Mae. So if you're super new to cross stitch, you can get a lot of great resources in those videos with her. She goes through a simple project. She takes you through different threads to try. She tells you all the kind of supplies and how she sets herself up for success. There's a lot of great information in that video series. So for my first stitch, instead of going from one corner to the other, I'm actually going to go from one corner to the center of that available box space. I'm sure there's a better way of explaining that, but instead of going from corner to corner, I'm going from corner to middle. Then I'm going to go to the opposite corner and into the middle to meet my last stitch. Now I'm going to do my opposite corner to make the cross. And that thread is going to travel over the top of that center stitch, hiding it. And I will get closer up to show you what that looks like. So I have my first cross done right here on the kitty ear. And for my first stitch, I went from this corner to the center of the square. Then I came out through this corner and went to the center of the square, meeting where my last thread came up. Then I went to this corner and crossed over that middle pin stitch. So now I have a really secure beginning stitch that is acting like a knot, but it's not a knot at all. Is everyone with me? Give me a heads up. Hands or thumbs up. What? If you're with me. So this all but eliminates the need to weave our thread tail in on the back side of the work, but you still could do that as well just for extra assurance. So here's what the back looks like. I have that tiny little pin stitch in the shape of a tiny little X. I have my thread tail poking out, and now I'm ready to create the next cross stitch in the design. And so it's recommended to work your cross stitches in the same way. So if you start on your lower left corner and travel to your upper right, and then you go to your upper left and lower right, you'll create all of your cross stitches in that exact way so that all of your threads are passing over in the same pattern. Does that make sense? All right. In the grand scheme of things, you may not even notice that one of your threads is crossing over a different way, meaning, you know, your lower left is crossing over your lower right. But it could make a difference if you want to make sure that your piece is perfect. It's just a good rule of thumb, and then you get kind of in this meditative state. I can't speak right now because I'm trying to cross stitch and talk at the same time. You get in sort of this meditative state where it starts to become a little bit automatic and a little bit easier for you to manage when you are going in the same exact way throughout the entire piece. And, you know, if these cross stitches are a little bit too small for you, you can try enlarging the design. Now, if it goes beyond one sheet of stick and stitch, you will just have to stick them together at the right spot. So sometimes if we enlarge this to, let's say, 200% or 250%, we're making a larger pillow or wall hanging or something, you just want to make sure that you line up your stickers so that the pattern matches, and you can just cut out 2 stickers and make sure that everything's working out. So I already have a knot on the back of my thread because, again, I'm talking and cross stitching at the same time. So I'm just going to go back here, get rid of my knot, and then keep stitching. So I won't bore you with, my own cross stitch since I do not have an overhead camera when we do sew what's. We save those for our video casts and webcasts and our online education over at sewingonline.sulky.com. So since I don't have an overhead camera for you to see, I won't continue on with more of the design. I'm going to show you some other fun things that you can do with Filaine Petites or with Filaine larger spools as well. And I can't even get my knot out while I'm speaking, so I'm just going to use my little needle minder and go back to this later when I'm not multitasking to the nines. But I have the start of my little cat ear, and it starts coming together rather easily. So really fun, great project you can get a start on now and definitely be ready in time when Halloween starts and you want to start switching over your decor to all of those fun, spooky ghosts, goblins, witches, and gnomes. All right. So I want to move forward and show you some other things that you can create with our Filaine Petites. Again, this is a brand new thread size at sulky.com, so you can now get the Filaine Petites in these 50-yard snap spools. And I'll just show you the difference here. So here is our 435-yard spools of Filaine. Now we have the 50-yard snap spools of Filaine. So like I mentioned before, if you're doing machine embroidery, and we have a couple of different machine embroidery collections that feature this Filaine thread. We have our Peekaboo Pets, which is comprised of 3 cat designs and 3 dog designs. And you need a lot of thread to create the fur of those designs, and they're larger in scale as well. So you'll need these 435-yard spools for your dog and cat designs, so you can stitch out a lot of them. But for our pollen designs, I'm going to go through and show you our pollen designs. This is a collection of 6 flowers. And what's cool is the petals and detailing of the flowers, that is all done in Sulky rayon. But the pollen designs, the area of the flowers that, produce the pollen and make us all sneeze and go crazy, those are done with the 12-weight Filaine thread. But it's such a small area that you can get away with using these 50-yard spools for that collection. Now, depending on how many flowers you want to embroider, you might want to go up to those 435-yard spools, but we also have a pollen slimline. If you are not familiar with the slimline containers, these are the best way to store and organize your thread. I have several of them. Excuse me while I grab one. And let's see, this is Cotton Petites. So this is a slimline container. It has room for, let's see, 80 spools? That sounds about right. Yep, 40 on each side. You can color code them. When you open up your slimline, you can hang each side on the wall with some hooks, and these come apart as well. So you can hang them individually and see all of your thread. And what's great is you can hang them this way so that they are totally protected from dust, dirt, debris in your sewing room. And then when you go to use them, just take them off the hook, turn them around, and grab your thread spools. Also, they have these really handy release buttons, if for lack of a better word, where you can just push this up, grab the spool that you need, and then it goes back down. So it's really quick and easy way of getting at your thread spools. You can also fit these in your drawers as well. Like I said, put them in with the lid sort of up, protecting them from anything. And then when you grab them out of your drawer by the handle, they won't have any dust, dirt, or debris from being in a drawer. So at any rate, this is a slimline container, and we have a slimline that was created for the pollen collection so that you get all the rayon threads that you need that are featured in these designs that I'm about to show you, and all of the 50-yard spools of Filaine that you need to create the designs. So that's a really great way of grabbing up all the colors that you need in a particular design collection. We have thread palettes like we have for the Halloween gnome. We have slimlines. So there's lots of different options for grabbing up all the threads. And when you do so, you get it at a great deal because they, discount it when you go ahead and buy all of those colors together. So with the pollen slimline, you get all the threads as well as all the designs, right? Or you can grab up the pollen collection as an individual collection, or you can grab the designs up piecemeal style, right? Just buy up the ones that you want, put them in your account at sulky.com after purchase, and there they will be stored forever and ever and always. You can always download them from there if you forget where you put them on your computer, or you get a new computer, or the thumb drive suddenly doesn't work that you put them on. You can always grab up your designs from your Sulky account. So here is the calla lily design from the pollen collection, and you can see the majority of the design is done in rayon, except for the little tiny inside part of the flower in that orange and yellow. So you just need a little bit of orange and yellow. The 50-yard spool will be plenty. And then that's all you brush out of the design. So that becomes fluffy and realistic and a really cool thread effect that you get. And the rest of the design is done in beautiful rayon thread. All right. Oh, yes. We also have slimline containers for the larger king spools of thread as well. So they're not just for the smaller snap spools. I think I have one right next to me as well, but no, all of my larger ones are in a different area. I apologize for that, but we do have slimlines for the larger spools as well, not just the little snap spools. All right, so here is the calla lily. And then here we go, brushing out the Filaine portion of the design using that wire brush. So you just give it a good little brush with the wire bristles, and then you get this cool effect. You see how fuzzy and furry the inside of the flower gets? And it just pops, right? It just really gives a cool little story to this design that you're adding to a tote bag, a zipper pouch, something like that. So really fun. And here is the, what design is this? Someone help me out with the name of this flower because I can't remember off the top of my head, but at any rate, this is during the stitch out. Now, when you're using that 12 weight thread for embroidery, you need a much larger needle. Do you see how much thread the needle is trying to penetrate right here? Because all of those layers and shading and colors of rayon, that's first what we have to go through, and that all has underlay stitching and bobbin thread and everything on the wrong side. Not to mention your layer of fabric and your layer of stabilizer. So your needle is already going to have a tough time going through all of those layers. Now we're using a heavy thread on the top with our 60 weight thread on the bobbin. So we need a size 100 needle. Okay, I like to use a titanium top stitch, and I switch that needle out when I switch out for my heavier weight thread. That titanium needle is going to get through all of those layers, no problem. And the size 100 assures that we have enough room in the needle hole to accommodate the thickness of that thread. And when we're doing high-speed embroidery, the thread likes to go up and down and around and do all kinds of crazy things in that needle hole. So we want to make sure it's just big enough for the thread so that it doesn't waver and ripple and move during the stitch out. So a size 100 titanium top stitch needle, that's what I like to use for these thicker, heavier weight designs. And then when you need to go back to your rayon per your color chart, make sure to swap your needle to a smaller needle, an 8012 or a 9014. You can use a top stitch or an embroidery needle, but you do need to swap your needle for those portions of the design. So keep that in mind too. But you can see all that yellow thread is representing the pollen in this flower. And here is the finished stitch out when it's not brushed. And you can see it looks really cool, not even brushed, because that heavier weight thread really pops off of the surface and gives you a lot of dimension on its own. But brushing it out just gives you that little bit of fuzziness, the little bit of interest. You know, no other thread is going to do this unless you find like a sort of a wool blend thread that's out there. It might be just marked as brushed or heavy weight. That will brush out as well, but it's just not as affordable and easy to use as this 12 weight 100% acrylic thread. All right. So here's what that one looks like brushed out, and you can just see that little bit of fuzziness. You know, some of these it's hard to capture in photographs, but when you see it, you know, for real, you can really see that fuzziness and the cool texture. Okay. Here's our dandelion design. This is all part of the Filaine or the pollen design collection again. So here's the dandelion design, and all of the white little fluffs of the dandelion are done in the 12 weight Filaine. So this is before it is brushed, and here is after. So cool, right? I just absolutely love that little bit of fluff that you get. It couldn't be more perfect than for a dandelion. Here's another angle so you can really see, you know, the more you brush it, the more of those fibers you're going to get. So keep that in mind too. All right, so here's our Gerbera daisy, and just the center of the design is done in the Filaine. And you can see those stitches are longer and not as compact as the rayon stitches in the design. And this is a really great example of how you can see that. So you do want to make sure to pay attention to your color chart. I saw somebody in the chat said, wow, this seems like a lot of steps, a lot of things to remember. The color chart comes with your design download, and just put that up on your screen or print that out and have it next to your machine so that you know, okay, this is when the Filaine stitch out happens. This is when I need to swap my needle. And you can kind of tick off the color chart after you use each thread, and you can refer to the step on your machine as well to make sure that you are swapping those threads out as needed per the design, because if you go to stitch out these areas where the Filaine is intended and you accidentally use a 40 weight rayon, it's going to stitch longer stitches that are further apart. And since it's a thinner thread, you're not going to get that coverage. You might even see underlay stitching through those areas if you don't swap to the right thread thickness as intended by the digitizer. Linda says, are these specifically digitized for Filaine? And yes, they are. But as I mentioned, there are portions of the design, most of the petals and the detailing is digitized for rayon. But these areas that I'm showing you are digitized specifically for Filaine, so that your machine knows that these are longer stitches, they're further apart, and you can also slow your machine way down during those Filaine stitching portions. As you can see, it's not a whole lot of the design. But if you are doing one of our peekaboo pets, let's say, slow your machine down because it's going to be sewing a lot of that really heavy thread. And just the slower you go, the less friction you have, and you'll get a better stitch out. So that's kind of a better safe than sorry kind of a precaution. So here is the center of that Gerbera daisy, and you can see it has fluffed up so nicely. You can almost not even see each thread strand anymore because of how much I brushed it out. So really cool. Here's our hibiscus design. And this one is stitch out in progress. And now you can see I had to really get at an angle to show you the orange part of the design is all done in Filaine. So just the orange part with a really wide satin stitch in that Filaine and then brushed out to make it really fuzzy. And here's our poppy design. So this was done on cork fabric. And only the little white stitches in the center of the flower are done in the 12 weight Filaine. So it looks cool even without being brushed. But here we are brushing it out, just the little white areas. And since the rest of the design is done in 40 weight rayon, you don't have to worry about your wire brush harming the rest of the design because it's really just going to fluff up those textured fibers of the Filaine thread without harming the rayon thread underneath. And here's what that one looks like. Again, I had to get at an extreme angle so you could see the fluffiness of the poppy design. So really, really neat, cool effects. You can achieve these effects with cross stitch, hand embroidery, stamped cross stitch. You can get our wooden blank for the Halloween gnome and brush out the white portions of the gnome beard and the black cat fur, and then continue on with the rest of the piece. And you have a totally completed project, and you didn't have to do any other sewing other than your cross stitches by hand. So really, really fun thing. You can grab up the blank. You can grab up the Filaine Petites palette, which has all 6 threads that you need to stitch out your Halloween gnome, and then grab your free Halloween gnome cross stitch chart at sulky.com. And that's all you need aside from a hand sewing needle to be on your way to a finished piece. So where did I even put mine? In progress. I will fix up my knots and I will keep you all notified of my progress and how long this little guy takes me. And I'm off to a good start. I've got an ear and a knot on the back, but you know, we'll get that fixed. All right. One last thing I want to tell you all about today. Actually, I'm going to go through the questions before I go on to my next. Lori says, where can we get the designs? So the pollen collection is available at sulky.com, and you can simply search pollen and you'll find the entire collection and all of the designs individually if you want to just pick and choose the ones that you want for your projects. All right. Forgot what size needle should I use with the Filaine threads. So Again, if you are using these for machine embroidery or top stitching or free motion stitching, you will want to use a size 100 needle. Some people even go up to a 110. And we have these at sulky.com. I like to use the titanium top stitch for the machine embroidery. Now, that is for a medium to heavier weight fabric as well. I don't really recommend doing these super dense designs on a lighter weight fabric, even a quilting cotton, unless you're using a bunch of stabilizer, a few layers of, let's say, soft and sheer. You might even need 3 layers of it to support all of those dense stitches if that's the fabric that you want to use. But a medium weight, even a linen or like this towel blank, you could get away with some tear easy, maybe even a couple of layers of it, and then that's going to tear away really cleanly when your embroidery is complete. So you don't want to use that super big needle on a lightweight fabric, let's say a cotton voile or a sateen or something like that, unless you're really stabilizing it well. You can even use a wash-away stabilizer like a Fabrisolvi as an additional layer during the stitch out, and then wash that away once your embroidery is complete. Okay. Doris says, what is the size of Filaine? I think it's larger than embroidery thread. Yes, it's much larger. It's 12 weight, whereas traditional embroidery thread is 40 weight. So it's much, much heavier weight and thicker. So you do need to use that larger needle, slow down your machine speed. Another thing you need to do is turn off the tie-off embroidery start and stop stitch on your machine. You want to bypass that tie-off stitch at the beginning and end because you don't want that little knot on the wrong side of your fabric that pulls the Filaine to the wrong side. You want to keep it on the top of your fabric so you can begin the embroidery, and if it wants to tie off the thread, advance it a stitch so that it skips that and just starts the design. Then as your design goes on, you can stop the machine and trim your little thread tail and you will be good to go. But you want to avoid that thick thread being pulled to the wrong side at the beginning and end of your design. So keep that in mind as well. We want the needle to not struggle a bit and not have more to go through than absolutely needed to create your balanced stitch out. And be sure to use a lighter, much lighter weight bobbin thread when you're working with these heavyweight threads. You want to use Sulky 60 weight bobbin thread or the 60 weight poly light in the bobbin. All right. Linda says, can you use Filaine for other designs? So you really need to make sure that your design that you've chosen is specifically digitized for this heavier weight. If you use a design that you have on hand and you say, I want this part to be fluffy, and you just decide to use your Filaine thread, if that design is digitized for 40 weight thread, your stitches are going to be much shorter and closer together. And if you're using a thicker weight thread, there isn't enough room for your thread to fit into all of those spaces. Does that make sense? So it's going to start sewing over itself. It might overlap the thread. It's going to cause some bobbin thread buildup on the wrong side as well, because for a balanced stitch out in machine embroidery, your bobbin tension is actually pulling that top thread ever so slightly to the wrong side. So you're already going to get a little bit of Filaine on the wrong side for a balanced stitch out. And that's so that your bobbin isn't showing on the right side of your fabric. So it's going to pull your thread even more to the wrong side, creating a bunch of thread buildup that your needle's trying to penetrate, and you might result in a broken needle. You might result in a big old bird's nest on the wrong side. And just some problems. So you need to make sure that the design is specifically digitized for Filaine or for a 12 weight, or it might be labeled brushed or heavy. and just read the description of the design wherever you are purchasing it, or you can even reach out to the Contact Us page on those design websites and say, hey, can I use a 12-weight Filaine thread for this? And they will tell you, yes, you can, or no, it's not digitized for that. So you do need to remember that, and you can't just swap out thread weights and expect to have a really beautiful balanced stitch out. Okay, Erlene says, do you use it in the bobbin thread also? No, we do not. Now, in certain instances you can, but not for machine embroidery. I have done some really beautiful quilts using the Filaine, and I used it in the bobbin as well. I elongated my stitches, my quilting stitches, for almost a handwork look to it, and I had great success with that. And that's because I wanted to see the beautiful Filaine thread on the back side of my quilt as well. So for quilts, even using a long arm machine, it can work, but you do have to have those little bit longer stitches in order to achieve success, but not with machine embroidery. Unless you're doing bobbin work, I would not put it in the bobbin. Okay. Everybody's saying they like the fuzzy effect. And Eva, this is the comment I saw. I'm a novice. I'm not sure I can remember all these steps. Different weight threads, changing needles, seems like a lot. So we have a lot of references at sulky.com for using the Filaine thread for handwork as well as machine embroidery. So if you are ever confused or you can't remember what needle, what stabilizer, what was I supposed to do, you can go to blog.sulky.com and you can search these things. You can search Filaine thread and you will see lots of references pop up for that you can refer to kind of remind yourself all these adjustments to make to have success at the sewing machine. You can also always reach out to us at info@sulky.com if you want to shoot us an email. We also have an 800 number you can call on our website and get in touch with us directly. We have an excellent customer service team at Sulky. I have never experienced anything like it. They really pride themselves on making sure you have the best experience possible, whether you're using Sulky and have a question about a Sulky product, or you're working your way through a project and you get stuck. We want to be here for you, and we want to be the reference that you go to and that you can trust. So please reach out to us at any time. If you can't remember, what was that needle size? What did she say again? We will do our magic and get to the bottom of it and help you out. Okay. Let's see. Lots of people were giving me the names of the flowers. I appreciate that because sometimes things just totally escape me on the fly. And I just can't remember. Thank you, Yvonne. The thread holders are amazing for the snap thread spools. Love, love, love them. And again, we also have those for the king spools, not just the snap spools. So it's a really, really awesome way to organize and store your thread. And I'm really speaking from experience here because, as you can imagine, as the content director for Sulky, I have every single line of thread in all of the colors. I know, it's the best job ever. And I need to keep them organized or my space is going to take over, right? So I have slim lines stacked up underneath my cutting table, and they're, well, they used to be in order of thread weight. My girls love organizing thread, thankfully. Phew. So a lot of the times they like to come in and recolor code all of my slimline containers. It's pretty great. I should probably start paying them. All right. I think that I am caught up on the questions, but again, if I didn't get to your question and you need an answer, always reach out to us at info@sulky.com. I also go through all the comments on YouTube and Facebook so that if we miss something, I can respond to you directly. Okay. So I have to let you all know that our Candy Corn Clutch free webcast with Sue O'Very Pruitt of Suki Sews is next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. at sewingonline.sulky.com. If you have not registered, be sure to do so that you can be ready and waiting for us next Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. You have to register for the event, and it will go into your own personal library on our education platform. Again, that is sewingonline.sulky.com. I linked directly to where to register in the description of today's post. So if you're not seeing that, be sure to hit that little See More button so that the entire description pops out, and you will find the link to register for the free webcast. We will be joined by Sue O'Very Pruitt of Sulky Sews. Like I said, she is a great machine embroiderer and educator. You will love her energy. She is so cute, and she created this specifically for our webcast. So this is our candy corn clutch, and I finally got mine completed. I made the large size. So here's my little candy corn clutch. And somebody last week was saying this would make such a cute little scissor pouch. Also, it's the perfect size. I will say, after I made mine, every single one of my kids asked for it. They want to use it as a pencil pouch at school. It's made out of Sulky Felty. It has glowy thread. Can you see all of that quilting? That's all done in Sulky glowy thread. There's also quilting along the white portion. That is all done in glowy. And then we have our great zipper. It's fully lined, so you can put your scissors in there or your sewing supplies or anything that you want. And then she also included this really cute little zipper charm. That is also done in the hoop. This is done entirely in the hoop of your embroidery machine. If you want to make the large size, you need a 9x10 hoop. If you want to make the larger size or smaller size, you need a 5x7 hoop. 2 sizes are available for the In the Hoop project. We will be going through all of it, soup to nuts, during the webcast. And then this is a separate hooping. You can do this in a 4x4 or even smaller hoop, your smallest hoop available. You can also create several of these in one 4x4 hooping. So I thought, while I was stitching one, why not stitch 4? Because that's what fit in my hoop. So now I have all of these little guys, and I put some jump rings that I found just at the craft store. I got a bag of extra jump rings, and I'm going to make these into earrings and a little necklace. So that's what I'll be wearing for the webcast. Maybe you can join me. And these also feature Sulky glowy thread. So if you want to get dolled up on Halloween night, or maybe for an office party or something like that, you can wear your glowy earrings and glowy necklace and be super cute and festive. So lots of different things you can do with these little charms as well. I found this little pin that I had. It was like a little promotional thing. You could just stick your little pin in here and wear it kind of like a brooch. So many different little options for the cute little charm. I absolutely love it. So make sure you are registered so you can join us next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Here is the In the Hoop design. You can buy this separately at sulky.com to just get the design files for the candy corn clutches, 2 sizes, and the little charm. Or you can grab up the whole kit. And with the whole kit, you will get the design collection pretty much for free. You get both stabilizers that Sue is going to be using during the webcast. You get a pack of needles. You get 6 threads, including 2 glowies and some poly decos for constructing and embellishing. You get 2 zippers, so you can create 2 small guys if you want. You get the lining fabric, batting, and 3 sheets of Sulky Felty. You also get the little jump ring and lobster claw for your little zipper accoutrement. Okay? So cute. I love it. You can make little key rings for back to school, for teachers, just so many things. And the kit is really affordable. It is already on sale for only $39.99. You're getting all of these things. It will be on sale until midnight next Tuesday. So you only have a week left to grab up your kit. And they are going fast. I wanted to make sure that you were all aware that the kit supply is limited. So make sure if you want a kit, it's time to pull the trigger, because I really want to make sure everybody gets one in time to make their candy corn clutches and be all ready for Halloween. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining me today. I hope you had a spooky-rific time here on So What today. And I can't wait to see you all next week for Candy Corn Clutch. It's going to be a great time. And I will join you also next week for another So What. So you can set your notifications. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel to never miss a So What. And you can also be reminded on Facebook as well. Again, be sure to sign up for our newsletter at sulky.com, and you will also get an email reminder if you prefer to be reminded that way when we're going live here on So What. So thank you, Linda. Thanks to Kathy. Great to see you all. And I'll see you next week for another So What and for the Candy Corn Clutch free webcast at sewingonline.sulky.com. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you